Hello, Babajaros, Babajarosis, which I invented that word. I donated that word to the English language. It stands for only individual Babajaros or Babajarosis. You could speak it to a group or everyone at once, but if you speak it to a group, you're referring to everyone at once when you use this word consciously. Now, the ancients, they asked how we should look at every word, but we can't because we're not being allowed to. Otherwise, we're being sensed, even if that body is a majority, even if of countries. Every body of the human species body knows when you give them the list of what's actually recorded. For example, since before America's founders were even born, the suburbs had been designed tactically denatured, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded. Since before they were born, with slavery entrenched already, they weren't even born. It was entrenched north and south. They were sickly, distinctly enslaved, everyone A through Z since some ancient times. All exceptions in exception nature that appear to demonstrate to be in demonstration of other. This breaching method increase effectively knew. I mean, correctly knew they would use that to blame other things, others yourself. That would be self-value because everyone is speaking, having spoken for the short words, let alone for their protraction regarding positives and negatives, like evidence, like truth, like facts. This breaching method employed them to be used as lies and to exploit each person as an identity of volume. But because relative to where and to how it is necessary to discern this and to overcome, we have to understand how identity works. See, we have descriptions of how computers work, for example. What is positive or negative about that? Each of the sciences, it came through all, even the differences of that is being and having been applied, assigned, slash hyper assigned. And I say it like that because of the breaching method assigned before our founders were born rolls with the value nature system as its own, then as economies, leaving out how it uses value. Again, hyper native pure. If we appreciated this, we instantly already there are American history told honestly. The Native Americans sickly distinctly, then and now, our founders who had to counter extort to other founders, then and now, and everybody else is sickly distinctly forbid the voice of any individual voicing for any individual properly, group difference, no, or species volume difference, or that body is sensed. Now, how this has been exploited, kept and keeps manifest, where how where people are going to walk. For example, everyone when you guys came through campuses, there are people above your grade and below your grade, and at your grade, they don't know at all. But there are exceptions made that show the same thing. Like I don't know Nick Rucci, and I don't know a, 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 a Brendan Leahy. Yeah, I believe there are more people with that name in his family and a whole bunch of people in his family, male and women, men and women involved with doctors from Harvard Hospital who are also ones with badges. One's also different kinds of badges, foreign and domestic, and other medical locations and campuses that have roles also with other nature came with news locations. So they make positives or negatives. And they make it like that, like pretending they don't discern. Relativity. Uses of names. For example, is like Einstein. and uses of saying, "Oh, what did you read?" to know. In other words, we have black pupils, white survives exceptions to know that and how the sciences are abridged. The Constitution was supposed to be gotten unabridged. We have rights that are too innumerable to list. They prevent us writing, and they prevent the identification of themselves interbranch. Now, they also have recorded roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, certain type of victim slash hyper victim. Forgiveness is to show how everyone is guilty simultaneously, and or that body is sensed, even if that body is a group. The second we hear people speaking with black, white, exception nature, the human body knows there's a system other than its own, the one that is hypernative pure, the one that is communicating to us what black and white is about. But see, now we have this filter, systems individually grouped in together, entertaining and having entertained. Syntax, therefore, positive and negative treatments, time treatments, relativity treatments. Things can be positive some ways and negative others at the same time. There is only one nature of positive slash hyper positive that will only stay positive unto itself. You have an identity to discern this. Your identity is relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. Note the same way values are. Because there is the identity that our identity is semi-nature relationship to it. It's what allows to work how all parts of your body are semi-nature relationship to your complete identity, while simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously. Your body's semi-nature relationship to it. But itself is to an extent already relativity to positive and negative. No, but through system as a system tactical ulterior from these. Just assign people to speak about things like guilt or innocence or crimes and use names or nature after they already had roles with predicate acts with facts and the difference of that. And now that's why it's important to understand that where and how you make mistakes that the breaching method knew you would make when describing or not describing with things like slavery that it employed are about, with things like witch trials that it employed are about. Even if that was made up by some reason, our founders had some good reason maybe to make it up. That breaching method still was here first. That's what made everyone would have to leave a witch trial narrative and location slash and use of slash s of it is still ongoing. Advertisement companies and the difference of it. They've been placing fake motivations at locations relative to this. Their roles with conjunctions too, all along roads and routes. With where and how, there have been phenomenon manifest. One of the things it is an identity theft, fraud, slander method, sickly distinctly against every single person, and how sickly non-distinctly is left out, even though it's recorded a whole bunch of ways. This way, for example, we have black people's white survivors that was left out from the conversation what slavery is about, as the breaching method that employed that before our founders were born. They measure and maintain that people don't say that. Who reads or not, that truth is being used for a lie on a mass scale. So what we have, the overt criminal enterprise is private. I'm not a lawyer. Overt. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a police. I'm a boxing, martial arts, and wrestling. Share the identity, the science, share grouped. And so we're gonna use this hyper evidential identity of hyper relativity, which is also the identity of relativity as itself distinctly though, because it is distinctly non-distinctly and simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously on two as itself. Not just, in other words, the order of the finite, the order that's active now and grouped, it comes with the value of what came before this as itself and what is to come. It as a hypernative system that doesn't leave out the smallest finite detail, or you sense we're not using the small its system, but through its system. So that's why it's critical to observe how we're placed are the short words. People from my sixth grade class and classes before that, every class, they affected confessions, not just to me, to others. Now I caught them with child abusers proven, but more. And the forgiveness is because they're pretending people, people who speak for guilt formally, originally and still. There were things they did that they wanted nothing to do with, but better than perfectly, increasingly, exceptions and exception nature were presented to them to get away with pretending other and with self-valuing that, even though it was collusion against themselves or that body was sensed. But to discern where and how we have to be into allow one to bring a quality of fact, human nature that is offensively being and having been prevented at all formal identity of the law locations per their original and still stayed collusion slash S intercities. One of the things they do is make people's self-value rules with sequence shifts type tide illusions. There are only three branches of government in America, other countries. Clearer than day, they are kept criminally foreign influence. How they are kept criminally foreign influence. Tactically delusions wrought is recorded. And it's right manifest too. That's why we're in how. No, we don't have one patriotism nature. And they're hiding behind how they follow orders and rely on other people's logic. They want to debate who's right. No, that's one of the things precedents in statutes, reading, and uses of them, and use slash s of them, come with hyper evidential proofs too, where how also proofs and evidence have been spoken for as roles with the torture, extortion slash slavery method that our founders left us to demonstrate against themselves sickly non-distinctly, sickly distinctly, and sickly non-distinctly, but they how sickly distinctly already had complete possession slash hyper possession of everyone. Before they were born, the suburbs were designed tactically denatured, but as in landscape theater, as collusion slash S, with the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures more and more, to stay collusion syntactically, where roles with that could not afford to be, let alone to protract. Syntax or nature, let alone grouping, it's not criminally foreign influence and that is being led by the hyper-relativity. It is why there are seven names for the verb, while it is simultaneously showing us three ways. They have three ways. There is one identity of relationship to themselves, where their self is. Also, those other seven names. I mean, the rest of the names. For example, participle nature. I refer to it as a nature, a present participle and a past participle, because that's where we are appreciating too. Not just the verb's identity greater than and more finite than itself, with relativity slash hyper relativity to where and how it is active. Excuse me, active value in the group. So the news people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They're influenced from off their locations. The kids, since I was a kid, their influence from off the campuses, to timed collusions with identity theft, fraud, slander, narratives and natures that put fake conversations that aren't at all, and make exceptions of people knowing each other when they don't know each other at all. But someone walks by and they smile and they say that name. These are also people involved with knowing where and how we're going to remember things, tied to criminally roles with criminally foreign influence, uses of databases and layers, where this is also a method where the descriptions of all acts, inactions, or nature itself are what is being employed. By this breaching method that used remotely had everyone sense for itself. Collusion with slash s with the torture, extortion, slavery slash s of factory nature, therefore everything else, more and more. Method slash s. See suits and ties and counters to them with wars and things like that, and they haven't addressed the identity, the grounds, identity of relationship to itself, the value. We have means. They designed the suburbs tactically denatured before our founders were born. More and more, there are people, all kinds of reasons to exploit that. And this breaching method knew that nature would continually demonstrate. A breaching method is a scientific value to reason. Nature demonstrates this. Like with the question, what is slavery about? What was slavery about? It was about the breaching method. So it keeps sickly distinctly people debating this. We're employed obviously with that consciously. All natures of debate. Forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded. Not even realizing too self-value, because that's where and how it is used remotely. So in other words, we have to be allowed to use people's names after they use ours, which is also relative to where and to how they're sequence shifting. So overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of no standard logic A through Z in the way of standard logic A through Z. No, I'm saying that what they call politics too. On a mass scale, this breaching method knew that countries individually grouped together would use words like politics. Sickly. And so nature would have revealed these answers. So the nature of debate is criminally foreign influence, where it is defended by the syntax natures of themselves aggressively, and where and how. As nice people, where we could discern. See, but everyone has to learn to appreciate the difference between the invisible but still discernible, slash hyper invisible but still discernible. And that being true conversely slash hyper conversely, where and how the identity of hyper-relativity, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of it are three only increasing identities of volume, where volume equals value as nature slash nature as value, in the opposite sequence nature. So nature is value slash, so value is nature is value slash value is nature. In other words, and where and how more and more forever nature is being made. It shows us how to answer its questions. It shows us the only increasing value of what actually was before the smallest finite detail here, or the order of the finite. Distinct from that which is active group, distinct from that which is the extent of progressive value we could see. See, we have left out the season's course, which is about where and how more forever nature is made, where and how everything's fruits, gifts, and means out of nowhere come. Hear native drums. In other words, long lost. But we know because we are hyper native pure. so we can appreciate how nature shows us the only increasing value of the difference of Native Americans for the difference of its system per species volume of individual bodies, a species body of individual bodies, grouped difference per its use of difference. We have the same color eyes as we have different color eyes at the same time simultaneously. There's way more to A and B than people think. And the significance of it, the value of it, no. See, right, this is right where and how people are pretending passions and emotions relative to where if they get sued or that's how they make their money. But they're getting involved with other people's business dishonestly and criminally foreign influence at the only locations that people could defend themselves, where defense is most critically, many ways. I come with where and how we are quality as fact human nature. See, but this has not been defended since founding. Pounding drums per the depth of the entrenchments and the difference between that and total strangers, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of logic A through Z, manifest as styles of syntax, can't defend themselves. In other words, they employed all forms of practical reason to use Immanuel Kant's phrase. He didn't have free speech, first of all, obviously, because what was entrenched. This was left out. The nature of debate. This they knew that this preaching method showed all identities of sophistication / non-sophistication, collusions. There is a Sammy the Bull Gravano, who's one of the ones involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with a whole bunch of people on Fox Connecticut News and at the buildings next to them, who have roles of people named Kevin Dillon and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and a Robert Chevrolet, their lawyer, also with uh, uh, the lawyer of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin's defendant capacities. But this Kevin Dillon and a partner of his is recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed, involved with predicate acts near me through time, and child abuses, and medical offenders of kids too, ones with badges too. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital involved foreign and domestic military. They forced Saudis to collusions with them. Also has names on off Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College. So it is important to get them onto paper because they're also lying about the motivations because they planted evidences there with an officer named Darth Vader per him, and the difference of how they have on off campuses police forms. That is also relative to how these are people involved all along Route 3 since before I was in grammar school. They were planting evidences, identity thefts, and frauds with names on off the campuses. WTNH has a bunch of people involved with stories of them at corners of streets and on and off a principal child abuser's campus. And along Route 175, people are involved with predicate acts with facts with them and whole methods of that. And fake emails. And they have roles with stealing a whole bunch of poems I sent. And they lied about girls to me since I was a kid. I mean, about me to girls and about since I was a kid and knowing me. They make it look like it's for other motivations. There's a Joshua Straker, his one-on-ones at Trinity College involved with the FBI and other people involved with mayors, with child offenders, including sexual and medical, and at the same time. Has something to do with their roles with fire departments intercities and military, a Justin Levinskis, a Mark Violet, and others have roles with the military, foreign and domestic, that forced Saudi's collusion with them, with identity theft, fraud, slander. There's a whole bunch of people tied to and as ones with the name Harris, Kevin Harris. People associated with Kevin Harris also further involved with child offenders, identity theft, fraud, slanders. That proves that they took a picture of him coming out of the door on the side of Weathersfield High School years ago near me to make it look like I know him. Make a fake exception. Yeah, there are people at Quinnipiac University further involved with this. And also, this is manifest right now at every campus, age and nature of campus, intercities, especially with people, especially differentially. But they do this thing where you'll remember people's names in the cafeteria of the schools, but you don't even know the person. And where and how memory and narratives by it and natures by it are being used to measure and maintain collusions against those who sensed and tried to voice. All that is simple to voice. All you have to do is care about Native Americans. Know that in the black and white thing, the way you really think, before you're told to blame other things, others yourselves for that, or sensed trying to communicate about that. And they do tricks where they have people telling on others, where how the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, the insidiousness of people A through C and into branch are little rats together. Intelligence too, all tied to them. Like Sandy Hook, intelligence is involved with the courts, but they're not as the courts. But they are, in other words, and all that is used remotely. There are foreign bodies involved, and then there's a hyper foreign body. Syntactically has all qualities, aspects, and nature of fact treatments at all formal locations, criminally foreign influence. There is judging freedom. There was a Judging Freedom YouTube channel by Judge Napolitano, who is a former employee of Fox News, national/international. Fox Connecticut News and the buildings next to it have roles with a whole bunch of natures of organized crime and states, interstates corruption. Where and how that is part of the hyper-evidential with American history. Our founders left us to demonstrate and understand how and why. It is critical to understand that Weathersfield was the last of 13 counter-extorted positions in more than 13 colonies that were already fact-nature tortured, extorted, and enslaved. Our founders left us to demonstrate how all exceptions could that appeared or that were other, how they were being and are being used to keep other things, others ourselves, besides that breaching method, blamed too, because they were our use. There is a singular use /s of it. See, it employ a whole bunch of other motivations, natures, needs, interests to keep the quality of fact should be nature criminally foreign influence, criminal insidiousness /hyper-criminal insidiousness. Therefore, to keep the quality of fact should be natures, identities, names, therefore, incapable of defending themselves, their sense and sensibility, Jane Austen's phrase. Their treatments of practical reason, to use Immanuel Kant's phrase. But per the species volume science, which does not leave out why and how those species bodies have the same quality aspects in nature. There was another identity there was a hyper-simultaneous per science, hyper-additional, with these distinct identities of sequence slash simultaneous nature. So our one species body has a sequence nature. A sequence nature is distinct identity of simultaneous nature. Everything is hyper simultaneous nature. But everything is forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded still increasingly to be to value role as being identities of a system individually grouped in together other than its own. Otherwise, that person is sensed, even if that person is a majority, even of countries. So mass farming and international reliances upon foodstuffs and non-appreciation, self-value of why and how nature communicates why we hunger and thirst. Again, being about why and how we are a hyper-native system. But we can't appreciate that because we have these other ones. Oh, this is a job. All jobs. Not that we can't have jobs and things like that. In other words, we have to follow mandated law too. On off the World Trade Center, they have roles with all kinds of natures of organized crime and of tactical delusions relative to where they have roles with psychiatry drugs, where and how they have fake medicine, or they have criminally foreign influence medicine, tactically delusions raw too under the guise of being patriotism natures. All ages and natures of campuses have state criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. The investigations, including of by the military, inter-services of the World Trade Center attack. They also have roles on our fire departments and medical campuses and child campuses and colleges and universities with the people involved with predicate acts with facts and whole methods of them, whole wire crime acts and methods relative to where and to how. So I don't know Nick Rucci and I don't know Brendan Leahy and the FBI and CIA and other agencies and their family members. Per themselves, you can't lie about that. It's also in court. Former director of the FBI, one of the person non-verbally confirmed, confirmed, also with his lawyer and his co-defendants. Right before that, Thaddeus Grabowski, Dominic, and long time before that, Dominic Lapriata, and Charlie LeConte and his daughter. Roles of predicate acts with different kinds of unions and the FBI and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, with people attaching middle school kids and grammar school kids to fake ties to each other that don't even know each other, fake natures of ties to each other. They're grouping kids like interbranch kids. They have timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of people A through Z and names at corners of streets. They want to pretend things are debatable that aren't debatable. They get away with because they have roles with the predicate acts with facts since before they were kids. They have roles at each campus I ever went to where there were timed, conscious, connected uses of it. And those are the people involved on off the World Trade Center, on off the court next to it right before the World Trade Center attack. Short term leading up to it, and long term with the same ones. Involved with wire crimes with Wethersfield Police now. Whole bunch of name stacking and switching. Attach people to fake conversations with strangers about bad things that happen to them as collusions. Whole bunch of people from Hartford Hospital have roles with predicate acts from other areas who had conversations and planted evidence on my street. I caught them with child defenders, leaders of the kids, and untimely death rolls that they have with untimely death, even if they're all made up and murders involved, timed uses of them, and relative shootings, intercities. The same ones who've been wire crimes since they were kids with Hartford police and with Weathersfield Police. Some O'Brien Cololo. And Cololo moved in when I was in fourth grade. That house was also with other retired police chief Cintron, and other one or more roles with that house, and names tied to it, involved with name switching, forging, identity theft, fraud, slanders, narratives with the putting narratives. Oh, with their reporting, even when they're reporting true things, they're using them criminally foreign influence for lies in records at all locations with the kids. They have been used. It has increasingly people at with has nothing to do with real healthcare too. They're pilfering money out of real healthcare, out of the nature of real, of the syntax of it too. So a whole bunch of people with the businesses next to and houses next to the campuses, including medical and fire, tied to the names Demoro and Aiello. They have some mayors, intercities. There's a mayors with the name Faenza, also on off the state judicial branch offices and on off the state corrections offices. People from my sixth grade class when I was in sixth grade. I didn't think he went to my school. I don't know. I didn't even know who he was. Lance Cuddy. He was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the little girl's confessions, and demonstrations of like a former mayor Gold had a daughter in that grade, a Debbie Gold, and there's a Lee Gold, and there are other people in their families. I don't know. They're involved with identity theft, fraud, slander since I was a kid. People at Whiting Forensics involved at crime scenes with them before the crime scenes happened in it as collusions and since, like with the principal child offender, too. Whiting Forensics with times collusions as the names with Whiting with the witness protection program and the body dumping spots involved. Enzo Fienza on Facebook, he recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed his cousin, and he has roles of male and female, foreign and domestic, who themselves recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed on Elm Street in Rocky Hill and Weathersfield. Elm Streets in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill or conjunctions to them. They have roles with federal evidences crimes, federal rules of evidences crimes, and natures of identity thefts and frauds they understand to an extent. Also elections crimes with both, and the differences between the parties is remain there. Where the breaching method assigned syntactical defenses of scientific values like politics used to keep things blamed other things, others ourselves, where criminal foreign influences / hyper-criminal foreign influences are what to be blamed. So now we are how we are grouped. Part of the way it's answering our questions with this is that and how we have the same color eyes. We have different color eyes at the same time, but there are exceptions. And you could have the same color eyes and with the exceptions, and you could have different color skin. Difference. It's using difference greater than and more finite than how math does. It's using the difference of relativity / hyper-relativity. So this has relativity. We have black peoples, whites are with the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. There's relativity to the breaching method employed laws that were fact, human nature, torture, extortion, slavery of everyone. We had not addressed with honesty the extortion of George Washington as we had been communicated to. We were supposed to understand before the Constitutional Convention how our founders had to counter extort the other founders, and how they were already fact, human nature, tortured, extorted, and enslaved by the method already that designed and had sustained use / S of the suburbs for this. But what about all that we taught while there was music playing in the background and it was setting a nice mood and they were telling us about history. Well, all the other crazy subjects in the news. Hey, we are in. Look at New York City. That was designed by what designed the suburbs before our fathers were born. That we had slavery sickly distinctly north and south. You ever seen a formal news locations, networks locations? The difference of it. In other words, they bring up serious subjects and they leave out those things, same things right through lifetimes because the location's next to every place too, use of it. The difference between adjacents and conjunctions is also being having been consciously used. All adjacents to and all conjunctions to the Connecticut State Judicial Branch offices and the state corrections offices. They increasingly have roles. Two speech class teachers I never had a personal conversation with them. People tied to them put fake things in databases, and they're associated with where and how people pretend not to understand others online when they report things that are actually recorded. And two, Connecticut Interbranch has been refusing to identify themselves. Also, per where and how they use the family members. They use the difference between the kids and the adults, speaking for things like adult or kid, and using the difference of that. Former dean of Central Connecticut State University, Dean Judd. He's one of the ones involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with the people further involved with child abuses. On the child abuse spread, like a principal child abuser, a principal Jim Bean. Now, even if they made that up, I recorded him doing worse before that with others involved. People with the name Eric Mendez and tied to an Eric Mendez and his family involved with New Britain Superior Court with child offenders, identity theft, fraud, slander, lying about himself and others that he doesn't even know since he was a kid. He's one of the ones that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with people on our side with the World Trade Center attack, who have roles with a whole bunch of people from different countries, a whole bunch of people tied to a Ray Reynolds, who is involved with the and a Rick C.M. Faglione, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital next to there, involved with the Leahy family with drugs and medicines crimes with prosecutors and judges and child offenders, sexual and medical, identity theft, fraud, slanders, attaching me, lying about himself to me, about to others, and about me to others, lying about and you know, attaching me to fake locations, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people on my street involved with this Rick C.M. Faglione, with child sex offenders, also medical, with this Leahy family, and a Brian Silver, and other prosecutors with New Britain Superior Court and judges involved with them. These are also female, black, white, female judges with KKK Confederate flag themed at the same time on the on the Facebook page of the principal child abuser. Roles with predicate acts of Joshua Julian also on that Facebook page. And he brought up news predicate acts from the past too, and methods through time. He has roles too, inter-services with the people that are involved with the identity theft, fraud, slander method, increasingly tied to the people that were each campus I went to. People I never even had communications with, mixed with people that they put fake communications with me, fake motivations for it too, timed uses consciously of the unions as criminal insidiousness natures, with readings of statutes and laws, for example, where people have the right to lie about others in elections. They applied that where they don't have the right to lie and locked it in, pretending that other, where they use the corners of buildings and of cafeterias. The cafeteria is used for predicate acts with federal evidences, crime acts, and methods of various natures of organized crime, also with the names next to the campuses. This is also conscious uses of the difference between how they'll get in more trouble than other people because they live next to campuses, and how other people will get more in trouble. You know, if when we're aware and how they're planting evidences, they're forcing the quality of fact human nature has collusions, not just as they because the interbranch had roles with this since they were kids. They're controlling the sensibilities of people. They might try to make a fake exception of communications with me, with an English class teacher I had, Miss Sickbaldi. I only have good feelings for her. Now I never had a conversation with her on Facebook. They try to make a fake example with there's people with there are foreign and domestic medical and ones with badges and military and filed with child offenders, including sexual, medical, and drugs and medicines crimes, as ones on off Harvard Hospital, who have roles with Anthony Agman. I never had a class with his brother. I spoke with his brother in real life. I never had a response to Anthony Agman in real life. In other words, in other words, I didn't have anything to do with them. Anthony Agman was the one in my class, though, when I was a sophomore, and is one of the ones involved with the Riley family and with a Mike DeMay, with Jewish themed, also with people with a Jewish community center and other religious spots, and the difference of that involved with the child offender, sexual and medical, and with this Leahy family. So a Leahy family and others, Mark Violet and Ajusta Kovinskis, and people on Trinity College have intermilitary inter-services, and people with Paul Kelly all along Route 175, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake exceptions of knowing me, and real ones. Mix. In other words, in demonstration, the same thing. They don't even know me. They pretend to know me as collusions with that and fake motivations. This is how they leak too through time. It has something to do with people all along that road and route and conjunctions to it and to that, with the ones involved with the World Trade Center attack and the difference between the sides. They forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, as is recorded, it's not even deniable, but for them putting fake recorded things too. They forced Saudis to collusions with them at the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center with the names involved on both sides of that cases. And the Saudis don't even know to an extent. No, Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. And officers refusing to identify themselves on my street. One forced himself through my door. And then he gave me a card. And he made it look like I had a conversation with him about Scaloras to make it look like I know them. There's people with the name Scalora who have roles with conversations of people at a hairdresser next to a CCSU magnet school. They pretended they knew me to her, criminally foreign influence. These are people after the World Trade Center attack who were involved leading up to it and since with identity theft, fraud, slander, all kinds of medical corruption associated with the World Trade Center and with Whiting Forensics, for example, in Middletown, other Middletown locations and state police roles with Central Connecticut State University that has intelligence families that are extended family members of a Gill family on Covington Street. And it's against the law to make that up. These are people involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with prosecutors and judges with foreign and domestic medical and sexual offenders of kids, also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and names on off the campuses, including fire campuses and New Britain Medical and Hartford Medical. They're also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with conversations with um, Johnny Duke and the guy who Paul Faspera I fought for Paul Faspera too, by the way, right before he turned professional. But that Pito Cardona and a place associated with him and police forms associated with him. They have roles with Sandy Hook, Newtown, with also medical offenders involved with child offenders of kids. As people involved time, collusions with the witness protection program, names involved with that in all sides of cases through time. There are collusions also with news predicate acts. And then they pretend it's personal, where and how that's part of the way we could discern. It's part of how other things others are sold got blamed for the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature, like the slavery method slash S. Like what I caught intercampuses being perpetrated, having been. They're pretending they're even when they catch those kids on things like that, doing things wrong. The people involved with that before you guys did that, or as adults, before you did that, way worse was being and having been done. And the difference of it, you know, by the people putting people away for that, and or by the people at those places. There's such a thing called differentially criminally foreign influence. Per me, I am not a lawyer. I am not a politician, but that process has stayed criminally foreign influenced. Weathersfield election locations, as rolls with wire crime acts and methods, they're being coached to cover up and pretend is real fake things they've been putting in databases and fake motivations where and how their family members are being and haven't been involved increasingly. I don't know if it, I'm gonna go into the names, but please fix the fake news, and please, someone get Trinity College to get them on paper. This Joshua Stryker, he's a little coward. I'll show you. Get him on paper. One name and sequence with the people on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices involved and the unions involved. There's a daughter of a John LeConch, a Dawn LeConch reportedly, and a Heather Hansen. A whole bunch of people from Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Heather Hansen involved with them with predicate acts on my street through time, and with people in my area through time, who are the ones involved with predicate acts that planting evidences on off the campuses intercities and have spots next to them, identity theft, fraud, slanders, then covering it up with the news. Attached me to fake conversations with them, the WFSB, fake locations with them. When I caught them forcing a principal child abuser that way. They attach the kids and their family members to faked and to changed communications with their own family members and with their teachers, which is increasingly important and relative, and with the people next to the schools. So there are people that live near a Paul Kelly, a whole bunch adjacent and conjunctions to a Paul Kelly and a Mark Violet at Hartford Hospital, who have all along Route 175 roles with foreign and domestic military people with the name um, Justin Klavinskis. I never had a class with Justin Klavinskis or Mark Violet. They were involved with predicate acts on my street from other areas and with sequence shifts and little tricks. So to make it look like people are connected as groups. You know, where and how they're kept getting away with too. How they're getting away with preventing mandated law, attaching fake conversations about about the World Trade Center attack, while forcing principal child abuser. The same ones have roles with elderly programs and elderly homes. The same ones have roles on not just on off the state judicial branch offices, with where and how probate courts have roles with forensics locations, elderly homes, veteran homes, and where they have roles with resolutions with those bodies and natures. And the differences of that is originally and still assigned by the breaching method that uses databases also. These of the republic for which we stand. and its campus abridged as its constitution, which we were supposed to have gotten unabridged by now. So the nature of debate regarding the window and the legitimacy of that nature of debate, the window with the Constitutional Convention, if they should open it, have it open or closed, they can afford to have discerned with the nature of debate is actually recorded as has been what has been used for pretending it could speak for law or nature. You guys are sick since you're kids. Pull what going on. So follow mandated law for this campus. See, Central Connecticut State University is an educational campus. That's in New Britain, Connecticut. They have roles with retired Hartford police forms and Rocky Hill and Weathersfield and state police and their professors involved with digital crime methods. Federal evidence is crime methods, federal rules of evidence is crime methods, and nature crime methods as criminal instances nature. I'll delineate their criminal foreign influence, factor, nature, quality aspects, and nature for you from their delusions. Now they are Central Connecticut State University in the Britain with the people at their campuses have something to do with the names on Trinity College and next to Trinity College, with Hartford Hospital and people on Church Street and Old Weathersfield that are tied to them, involved with identity theft, fraud, slavery, also the rules of federal evidence is crime, federal rules of evidence is crime, and as the ones with all as names as roles with names on all sides of criminal and of civil cases and the news at the same time, and the interbranch switching names, roles with refusing to identify themselves. So, and then they lie about why they said what they said in the database each time. We need to get them on paper. So please, these are people also interstates and with the borders issue. See, the border issue is manifest constantly. It's more ways manifest some ways variably, some ways constantly. One way is it manifests constantly is the same reason we have cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall /S, and appreciation of gases and water in its elements. Yeah. Prepare vaccines. I teach us things belong. So please, Weathersfield, intercampuses, let's get them on paper. Let's go. I'm just get a response. They put fake things in the news, fake motivations too. They're using their kids because of how they have the agencies and courts influencing this, having influence. And the difference between that, because those same names have roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and not legitimately. They also have a bunch of ways, acting coaches and acting professors that I never had personal conversations with, involved with the people on Church Street in Old Weathersfield and with the corners of the streets with the news planting evidences with child offenders and elderly homes offenders and elderly programs same time, veteran homes. You guys speak for identity too quick. And then who speaks for it quick on time when you're young? It's used. Everything's reversed with value treatments. So please, people associated with the White House too, in both parties, stop lying to the presidents and confess to them, especially if you're associated with, McCracken. I don't know what that has to do with the military. There's a guy with a picture. There's a Eric Burgess who took a picture to plant fake motivations as people collusion with. Since I was a kid, there were people increasingly involved with predicate acts at that location. So you guys jumping into businesses pretending you don't understand. You understood that there's a principle there, even if that serial killer body dumping spot and that guy and the names next to it are the ones all along Route 175. Predicate acts, fake things in databases of campuses with sexual and medical offenders. Rick Faglione also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with the ones on off Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University, connect collusions with them. They told lies. A whole bunch of people told lies about me and about my father, etc. To a Johnny Duke, and Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut has campuses leaders who and has their patients and criminals in a prison there too, prison campus too, involved with them with predicate acts and predicate acts methods before they got caught at the crime scene, collusions to keeping their mouth shut and against innocent people before they got caught to keep that shut, not found. But these are people also on off the state judicial branch offices and state corrections offices. Wethersfield police said they have the ones named Sullivan and Cololo involved. A Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics says that there's a Phil Cololo involved. There was a black guy there. I don't know if he was a patient, or some what, or like a trying undercover patient. No, I didn't have the response. We kept trying to ask me if I knew the Gold family. I didn't give him a response. In other words, there's a former mayor Gold is increasingly involved with the Joe Aiello and people with the name Demora. And the Joe Aiello said that there's the people with the name Christopher Cullen. I never had a class with Christopher Cullen, never saw him around school, nothing. Trying to make a fake exception. So I said, oh, well, I walked by you that one time. I don't know him. The one exception, he's involved with a Jennifer Smith and a Judge Smith involved with the child offenders. And further with a principal when I was there. His daughter was abused by one of the ones with the medical families involved with identity theft, frauds against me, slanders against federal evidences, crimes, rules of evidences, crimes, with a Kevin Harris, also involved with the courts and prosecutors. People at Quinnipiac University involved with the FBI, other agencies, foreign and domestic military, leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that context and since, they should fear Mike Pence. And he, if he just hears, heard, and did not respond, get him on paper, one name in sequence. Let's go. WFSB, please fix the fake news. Fox News, let's go. Let's get WTNH to fix the fake emails. Please help WTNH. Please get those people on paper. I want the confession. I want them on paper, one name in sequence with the court. Let's go. Let's have them identify themselves. Let's go. Let's go. Fix the fake World Trade Center predicate acts at the same time. And I want a response for what I caught them doing that they hid and how they hid it and replaced it. Fear. Apologize to the Wethersfield parents too. Ones with the name O'Neill. Ones with the name. Who's this creepy little guy too? What's his name? Somebody Bajerio. Make sure you pretend you don't know me. You don't pretend you know me. You're a fake little evidence is planting punk. Get this guy. Then he brings their kids into it at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, needing to hide the same sequence shifts with them. Something to do with their roles on all sides of this Connecticut, the Wethersfield Community Center, with names involved with federal evidences crimes, but also identity theft, fraud, slanders, lying about themselves and other has something to do with their roles with there, and their roles with the news predicate acts and Whiting forensics through time, also associated with the witness protection program, time uses of coroner/S involved. Fear. Don't let them pretend they could have an election and get me a response. See Renaissance.